Okay, it's 6 p.m. here in Boston, in the Eastern Zone, Boston, right? And it's 3 p.m. in San Francisco. Um, we are very happy to see you all here. I'm very happy to welcome you. This is our first event as Hult Data Global. For those who don't know us, we were the Data Analytics Club last year. We decided to make a strategical decision to become global, and that starts with um, having a local branch in San Francisco, right? That's our first branch outside of Boston. We are very happy now to start this event. I will ask you if you can to be with your cameras on. It's just because it's great to see your faces, to be more, to feel like we are in person, right? Yeah, and it makes us feel more comfortable, right? So if you want and if you can, we will appreciate that. So I'm going to introduce our speaker today. Please remember to be mute your microphone. If you want to ask something to Nicola, you can raise your Zoom hand. You can find that at the bottom in reactions. Sorry, and we will give you the word to ask anything to Nicola. So Nicola has worked as a data scientist in a robotics company in Italy. He has successfully completed his master in business analytics. He was in the dean list in both the fall and the spring semester last year, and he was being awarded by the peer of the year by its colleagues, classmates. We are very happy to have him here. He will be doing an introduction to Python, a master class for especially for those of you that haven't worked with this before. I hope that you enjoy it. I hope you find this useful for your career and for your next program to start. So Nicola, please go ahead. Let's give up a virtual applause to Nicola.
Thank you, Felipe. Thank you so much. Can you hear me all right? I'm gonna share my screen. So I assume that by now you have been able to install Anaconda properly. And when you open Jupyter Notebook, you're gonna see a screen like this. This is actually your files in your computer. And today we're gonna, once you prepare your Anaconda, open this Jupyter Notebook. And today we're gonna rush a bit through things. If you have questions, feel like to stop me and I'm gonna ask them, obviously. But I'm gonna stay also after this hour together to answer and to go more in depth. So let's start with Jupyter Notebook. If you want to create a new Python file, you need to click here on New and click on Python 3. This will open a new tab. This is where you create your code. So you have cells. This is a cell. You can write Python code here. Hello world. You can execute it using command return, control return if you're on Windows. On this button sign here, you can add more cells. And once you execute your cells, you're gonna see the order you executed them on the side. For example, the first cell I executed was the first one, then this is the second, 1, 2. I can also run them in different order. For example, I can run this one first, then this one last, so 3, 4, 5. So this is the basic of how the Jupyter Notebook works. So let's get started already. The first thing I want to show you are variables. This is the starting point if you want to code. Variables are essentially a container for values. For example, I can create one by just writing any name. In my case, I want to create one called X. And then using the equal, I can assign a value to it. For example, I can assign the number 42. And if I run this code, you're gonna see that nothing happens because I'm assigning and creating a variable, but I'm not using it in any way. If I want to see a content of a variable, I can use the command print. And if I run this, I'm gonna see the number that's inside. Another fundamental thing in Python and in any coding language really is to use comments. Comments are a way to make your code understandable for your colleagues and for other people reading your code, but it's not something that Python will see or execute. So anything you write after this hashtag here is just a comment for us to see, to remind ourselves what we're doing. for example, I can say sum of two numbers and print the result. And then I can create two numbers, number 1, 7, number 2, 8, then create a third variable called result, which is the sum of these two variables together. Again, this is not printing anything yet because I need to print the result. In this case, I can print the number 15. I can also print, I can also assign a value to a variable that is the same value I have now plus 1. So let's say I have the variable result, which is which contain number 15, and I want to add it 1 to that number I have. So I can comment it add 1 every time I run it. So if I do this, now it's gonna show again. I need to print result. So every time I run this, the number is gonna increase by 1. Another basic command in Python is the input command, which basically asks the user to input a value. The user for example, his age. So age equal input. When I run this, a text box is going to appear, and here I can write my age, for example, 24. The problem with this input is that if you see this, a text box like this, the user not going to understand what you want it to write. So inside the input parentheses, you can write an argument called prompt. And inside here, you can say, what's your age? And when you run this, stop and run again. Stop, run. When you run this, you're going to see the Python asking what is your age, and then you can say you actually know what you're asking to the user, you know what you're asking him. Okay, so there are 5 main types of variables in Python. And main types, but there are many more actually, but let's see only 5 today. The first one is string, abbreviated. Is there a question? Or maybe someone left his microphone on. The first one is string, abbreviated with str, which is essentially a sequence of characters. And it's created using apostrophe. So every time you have apostrophe in a variable, the content of a variable, that variable is a string. So I can write my name here, and I can also write numbers. For example, robot name equals bb8, or even just really any code you can write on your keyboard, that's fine. Almost any character. Then we have integers, abbreviated with int, which are whole numbers. So again, age 24. We have float, which are numbers with decimal points. So let's say GPA 3.2. We have Boolean, abbreviated with bool, which are true or false. So this is a variable used when something can only assume a value 0 or 1. For example, I can have a variable called data club member. So in this case, you are a member or you're not a member. You cannot be anything else. So it's good to have a variable that can only assume true or false. And remember to use capital T and capital F. And the last one is list, which is a collection of data. Oftentimes abbreviated with LST. And I can have like names, like my name, Felipe's name, Felipe, Soji. So these are the main 5 type variables. Now the question is, let's say that you want to create a certain variable. How can you make sure that a variable you create, it's, for example, it's an integer? Actually, Python understands by itself if age should be an integer or should be a string, because when it doesn't see any apostrophe, when it sees a number without any decimal point, it's going to think, oh, this number is a whole number. So I need to create an int variable. If I want to check what is the type of a variable, I can use the command type, and inside parentheses, write the name of a variable. And here I can see, oh, age is an int. And remember, it's very important that you use the right variable type, because sometimes you want to convert variable types from one to another. And if you don't use the right one, you're going to have all sorts of problems. So remember always to use it. And especially remember that when you use the common input, it always returns a string. So let's say that you ask, as I did before, I ask the age. In this case, if I say 24 here, and then I want to check the type of this variable age, it's going to be a string. And if I try to print it, you can see, sorry, let's print like this. You can see the apostrophe here. So to convert variables from one type to another, for example, in the case I ask the user for his age, I want to save this variable age in a int variable. I can use these abbreviations I wrote here to convert them. So convert to, is it possible to create a list with different type variables inside? Actually, one, it's possible. You can create a mixed list with any variable you want. You can have a name, you can have an age, you can have true or false. You can even have more lists inside each element. So you can really create anything. And then we're not gonna see this today, but you can access a specific element of the list using square parentheses. Python starts with 0. So if you want to access the first word, you need to use a 0. If you want to access the second one, use 1. If you want to access the fourth, it's number 3. But here you're going to see 2 variables because this is a list. So here you can have another square parenthesis to choose the first element of the 4th list. So let's convert this age into an int variable. To do this, we need to assign to itself the same variable, but use the abbreviation int that you can see here with the age inside the parentheses, string to int. And then if I print the type of this variable, it should be an int. As you can see now, it works. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to do a practice session together soon. But before that, I want to show you a couple more things. So let's make some practice together. So let's ask some information, some info to the user and convert it to the proper variable type. For example, we can have a name, username. Another thing it's important to know, it's a good practice to use variable names with without capital letters or lowercase and separate it with the underscore. Do not use numbers like n1 and 2 like I did here, because it's very confusing when you start to have many. If you want to have n1 and 2 and 3, a list of things, just use a list. And don't use names that are too long, even though in theory you can. Rishabh asks, can we use the type converter while asking for the user input? Actually, you can. So if I wanted, I could just say int input. So I can, instead of writing age inside here, I can put the input. And it's going to do 2 things at once. Yeah, you could also do that. Thanks for asking. So let's ask age. Let's ask, sorry, name. Let's ask age, and let's ask GPA. So again, to convert all of this, you need to use float for GPA. I'm repeating this because I'm going to ask you to do it soon. And int for age name. So sorry, age name, user age, user GPA. User GPA. Okay, user age. Okay, so this is how you convert their variables. You could also use bool if you wanted. And I'm not going to run this because it takes some time. Okay, now that we know how to convert things, we can start to create some more complex things. For example, we can say, let's first ask the name, Nicola, 24, 3. And then let's say that I want to create a message saying the username is And then here I want to create a message that changes based on the user. So in this case, I want to say username. So what happens here is I create a variable called message, and then I assign to it the concatenation of concatenate message with the username, and the content of the message will be the concatenation of the two. Oh, for example, here you can see the username is Nicola. There aren't any spaces because I should have added space here before adding it. And the username is Nicola. Looks like this. Okay. If I want to also add the age, and his age is, let's say, user age, this is going to give me an error. We can see together. So every time you have an error like this, you should always see exactly in what line you had the error. In this case, it says, oh, in this line number 2, so this line here, you have an error, and the type error is can only concatenate string, not int to string. When you have an error you don't know how to solve, Google it. 99.9% of the time, there are a lot of people asking the same question, so you're going to find it quickly. If you cannot answer it, you can always ask on the data club on WhatsApp group. But basically what it's saying here is that I cannot combine string, these are strings, together with the int. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to convert it to a string here. And since I'm not assigning this back to user age, I'm not changing the type of the original variable. So as you can see now, it's working. Yeah, Stack Overflow, absolutely, Felipe. Yeah, that's one of the best places. Okay, so now I think you're almost ready for your first practice session. I think we are on time. I'm going to show you a small script similar to what I want you to try. So let's calculate, let's ask for the user age and calculate and check if he's older or younger than me. So ask age equal int. Let's do as you said, Rishabh. Input prompt, what's your age? Then we're gonna write my age. Let's create a new variable called my age with 24. I know, actually, let's check how many years of difference there are. Check years of difference. Years of difference. Always remember to put comments, especially if you want good grades. Age diff will be a new variable. Age of difference, years of difference, sorry. Years of difference between my age and the age of the user. Actually, let's call this user age, it's clearer. Okay, then let's create a message. Let's say the user is plus age diff, and this is gonna give me an error if I don't convert it, so let's convert it to string. Younger than me. So let's try if it works. Maybe I made some mistakes. Let's do 10 years old. I forgot to print the message. Okay, print age is 14 years younger than me. Okay, it works. We need more space here. Okay, so now I show you more or less how to create variables. I show you how to convert from one type to another. And I show you how to make simple calculations like plus or minus with different variables. So I'm gonna send you a link with the first practice session. I'm gonna send it in the chat in a second. And we're gonna read it together. Okay, sorry, I sent it to, okay. Okay, can you see it? So let me share it. Okay, I think you can see it, right? So I want you to write a script that asks the following information to the user, which are name, year of birth, just the year. So let's say 1988 and so forth, and the home country. And then calculate the age of the user based on his year of birth. And then concatenate all this information in a short story. And once you're done, you can post your code here. Maybe you can spend 5-10 minutes on this. If you have problems, you can ask here on the chat, or you can unmute yourself. If you don't finish on time, just publish your code, and we're gonna have time to review it later anyway. So let's do 5 minutes. I'm gonna stop sharing. Oh, I also posted here some of the comments you will need. So if you're stuck, just review this code and try to understand how to adapt these commands to your problem. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Let's do 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
If you have any doubt, just unmute yourself. We are about to continue. Just remember to copy and paste your code on the Google form that is in the chat.
Okay, guys, I know I see so many people are submitting now. Just submit whatever you've done, don't worry. We're gonna have time to go over anything if you want. Okay, let's see. Sure. Okay, this is the way I did it. I also saw some of you did it in a smarter way where you asked for the current year. That's quite smart actually, because this way your code will work any year, not just for this year. But let's continue on my previous script. So before we asked the user for his age, then we calculated the difference between my age and his age, and then we printed the message with saying the user is X year younger than me, right? But what happens if I run this code and then I say the user is 30 years old? Then the message is going to be the user is -6 years, actually, younger than me, which doesn't make any sense, right? So what we would like here is to check if the user age is greater than my age. We need to actually do the other way around. We need to subtract my age from the user age. So to do this, we can use a condition, an if condition, which is, let me copy and paste an image for you. So condition works. Let me check if I have it. It should be here. Yes, here. Okay. So the condition works like this. We're gonna check if a certain thing is true or not. For example, in this example, we want to check if you're a member of the data club. We want to tell you something. Here's the Zoom link. Otherwise, if you're not a member, we want to tell you you need to join if you want to attend the event. In the same way, we can apply it. We can apply it in our script. Like this. So we want to first check if the user age is greater than my age, right? So to do this, we can use the if, and then we check user age is greater than my age. Then we need to use colon. Then when we hit the button return, we're gonna see that there is one indentation. And this is actually important because Python is indentation sensitive. This means that Python is gonna execute all the code that I write here indented if and only if this condition is true, right? So let's try to do something simple. Let's copy this one here for a second. So let's say if the user age is greater than my age, user age, let's just print this. Let's see if it works. So if I write 30, it's greater, and it should print this message. Yes, it's correct. If I print anything, even if I print 24, which is the same, it shouldn't print anything. And in fact, it works. If I want to print the other result, like here, if I want to go on the false, I need to use another command called else, always with the colon, and then print the other the other way around. So my age is less than, actually should be less or equal, less or equal. So now if I do 20, I'm printing what's here. And I can write as many commands I want here. I can write anything or do all sorts of things like create new variables. 42, I can also create new ifs and put them here. But this is more advanced. So for now, let's just improve what I did before. So If this case happens, it means user is older. In this case happens, means I'm older. So if this happens, when I calculate age difference, since the user is older, I want to subtract my age to his age. And then when I print it, I'm gonna say the user is X years older than me. The same way, when I use the else, I want to say the user is younger than me, and I want to subtract his age from mine, user age. So let's test if it works correctly. So my age, let's see, the user age is 30. It doesn't print anything because I forgot to print things. So let's print message. I could also print a message at the end, actually. It's better. So if I remove indentation here, this will print in any case. So let's do 30. The year is 6 older, okay. If I do 18, the user is 6 years younger than me. Okay, it works. So remember, when you use the if, always put the colon here, and you need to write at least one line of code. Comments doesn't count. Comments don't count. And I would like you to try to this if yourself. But first, I want to show you what happens if we have 3 conditions, right? Because in this case, we are not checking if my age is the same as the user age. To do this, we can add a new control, which is called elif. Elif is the short for else if. And here I can write another condition. For example, I can write user age equal my age. So this means if user age is equal than my age, then same age. Say that I have the same age. So how it works is that first Python checks if this condition is true. If this condition is true, it only runs what's below it and doesn't check this condition and doesn't go to the else. Just print the message at the end. If this condition is false, it goes to the else if condition. It checks if this condition is true. If this condition is true, it executes this code. So I can do message equals the user has my age. And if this elif, I could also add more else if actually. I could also add, let's say, if user age is greater than 200, I can say user age is wrong because it's impossible. And I can add as many as I want here. But for now, let's just keep 2 and let's check if it works. So let's say that, right, 24. It works. The user has my age. User is my age. And so now I want to show you the second practice session, second of 3. So I'm going to post it on the chat again, which is basically the same as before, plus writing an if condition to check if the person is a minor or is an adult. Where is the chat here? Chat. And I'm also going to post the solution of the previous one, just in case you didn't make it on time. So this is the solution for the previous one because you need to expand this one. So I'm going to start the timer now. Let's do for around 8-10 minutes again. Maybe a bit less here. Let's do 8 minutes. Oh, thank you, Felipe. Okay, everyone. Let's just post your code if you didn't finish, and we can go back on it once we finish with the main topic. I'll give you 10 more seconds to just post it. Okay. I saw someone that posted some very good code. Do not worry if you still didn't get everything, because doing all of this in just one session is quite overwhelming. So do not worry, absolutely. Let's continue. Oh, sorry, wrong. Here. Okay. So let's try to do something else now. So let's try to make a game, a small game, where you guess the word. So let's try to make a game where there is one word that the user has to guess. For example, word to guess word would be, I will choose Python, and then user's guess. I will ask the user to guess a word. User guess. Input prompt guess my word. See if it works. Okay, so I can try Nicola. Okay, nothing happens yet. So now I need to check if the user guessed the word correctly. So if guess word equal, remember 2 equals user guess. Want to print congrats, you guessed the word. Else I want to print wrong, guess, try again. So let's try. If I type conda, it's wrong. If I type Chrome, it's wrong. If I type Python, it's correct. Okay, so now it's working, but I don't like this game because every time it tells me that I'm wrong, it asks me to try again, but I need to run this cell again to try again, right? And that's not very fun. Let's try to make a loop where if you don't guess the word, it's going to ask you to guess again automatically. So to do this, we have actually 2 ways to do it. There are 2 main ways of creating a loop. So there is the for loop, and there is the while loop. So the main difference is that the for loop. So first of all, what's a loop? A loop is when your Python code execute a certain number of commands for over and over for a number of times. For example, let's say that I want to print the word hello 20 times. To print it 20 times, I could actually write 20 times hello, but that's not a good way to do it. It's much easier to use a for loop. A for loop works like this. I need to write for I in range parentheses and then colon. And then inside the parentheses here, I can write how many times I want to execute the code. So remember, you need to remember this syntax for I in range. There are also other ways, and there is much more that we can say about this syntax. But for now, just remember that this is the way to run the code for a fixed number of times. So print hello to run 20 times. So the for loop runs for a fixed number of times. So at the beginning, I choose, oh, let's run for 20 times. Doesn't matter what happens, it's going to run for 20 times. Instead, so let's create a new cell because I don't want to run the loop again. Instead, the while loop run until a certain condition is not true anymore. So let's say that I want to run the code until, let's say that my age is 24, and I want to run a code until my age is less than 30. And then I will print my age. My age. So if I do this, my age is 24. Stop and run again. So if I do this, this condition is always true, right? Because my age is 24 and this is 30, so it's always less. So here you can see that when there is this asterisk, it means that this cell is running. And this is keep writing and writing and printing forever. So let's stop it before my computer starts to complain. So what I want to do now is that every time I loop through this while, I add one year to my age. So let's say I become 1 year older. And when I run this again, my age is 24 first, then becomes 25, then 27, 26, 27, until 30. 30 is not less than 30, it's the same. So this stops the loop. So these are the two ways to create a loop. Let's update my game and give the user, let's say, 3 chances to guess the word. So the simplest way to do it, let's create a loop for in range 3. Let's see if it is a question. Could we throw an exception to prevent the program from crashing? Yes, you can. There are different ways to do it. You can prevent it before it happens, but you can also say, if it crash, do this. Do you mean when the program stops with an error, or do you mean when something happens unexpectedly, like runtime error? Oh, actually, we cannot. That's a big mathematical thing. There is a mathematical explanation why you cannot check if a program is running forever. Usually just use a fixed amount of time. So let's say that you can guess. So user can guess 3 times. So I'll put this here. So all of this must be indentation with 1 indentation. And so here the user will try to guess. Okay, let's try if it works. So now I'm running for 3 times this whole chunk of code, right? So from the guess to where I'm checking if the guess is correct, and then all over again. So let's try that like Conda is wrong. Okay, it's asking me a second time, it's working well. Let's try with the Hult, it's not working. Okay, if I try last time, it should be wrong. If I try Portal, it's wrong. Now let's see what happens if I guess the word. So if I type Python, it works. Congrats, you guessed the word. But then it keeps asking me again, guess the word, right? Because here I'm just saying execute this 3 times. So what I need to do is to stop this loop if I end up in this condition here. And to do this, I can use the command break. And break, what it does is if you run this code, this break code, it stops the loop the program is in. So in this case, if I go to this if and the word is correct, I should go to this print and then to this break, and this should stop this outer for loop. So let's stop this and try again if it works. So Conda, it's wrong, Python, and it stops the loop. So it's working well. It's working well. Okay, the last thing I want to show you, I think it's about time. It's to use the while loop. So with the while loop, it's basically the same, but what I want to check is whether or not the word is guessed. So instead of having this for, I'm gonna use a while, and I'm gonna say while the guess word is different. And to say different, I need to use the exclamation mark with an equal, the user guess, then the user can guess again. So let's try if it works. Oh, it's not working, right? Because I didn't initialize this, so this is always wrong. So first I need to initialize the word with empty string. So empty string is always different than any word. So in this way, it's gonna ask me to guess. So now if I keep asking, it's gonna keep asking until I guess. Okay. I'm gonna show you the last practice session for those of you who would like to stay longer. But first, let me show you some, let me share you some things with you, some communications. So I know, first of all, let me say something. I know that learning Python, especially if this is your first coding lesson, it is very overwhelming. Doing ifs, whiles, conditions, and all of this in just 1 hour, it's crazy. I was talking today with a data scientist friend of mine, and he was so surprised that I was planning to do this. So don't feel discouraged or overwhelmed. I'm gonna show you later the time, but for the next 3 days, I'm gonna stay here on Zoom for 1 hour a day. If you have any problem, if you want to practice yourself with any project you have, or if you want just to speak with me, just have a talk, I'm gonna be here. I hope today's lessons was helpful for you to start and learn something. If we can, we're gonna share this recording so you can see, maybe when I was talking too quickly, you can see again to see exactly what I said. I also wanted to ask you to follow our club all over the social media, obviously, and sign up to be added to the WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group, we're gonna send over, obviously, our events, but also if you have any problem with your code, you can post it there. Let's connect with me. So on Instagram, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, I'm gonna share with this presentation with you afterwards. Just say that you were here and I'll be happy to connect. What I suggest you to do further, to learn further, is to first of all create an account on GitHub, which is a social media for learning coding and sharing your work with employers and to connect with your colleagues. So when you do, again, connect with me. I suggest you to obviously do the data camp and do all the courses you can, but especially try to do some project by yourself. So like we did today, I'm gonna share with you a last practice session for those of you who would like to do it. And every time you're gonna work on a project, you're gonna have problems and errors. In that case, just search on Google. If Google doesn't help, ask on the WhatsApp group of the club or ask me, and I'm sure someone will answer soon. So these are the practice sessions that you can have with me, or just a coffee talk if you like. Tomorrow, the day after, and the day after again. And this is the Zoom link. I'm gonna share it, post in the chat also. And now let's take a picture off together. So let me stop sharing. Let's take our masks off for a second. Please turn on your camera. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Cheers. One more. Okay. Okay. One more thing. I'm gonna share with you the feedback form for today's session. Let us know if you like the session, what we should change. Did I go too fast? Anything? Please be honest. And now we can see the last practice session together. Okay. Which is actually my favorite. So share screen. Practice session 3. Okay. So for the last practice session, I'm gonna share it also here. And before leaving, guys, wait for a bit because I'm gonna give the word to Felipe before closing the event. So here we can see this game. If you open this link, this game where you need to guess a word from 1 to 100, and you can try anything you want. For example, you can say 50, and the game is gonna tell you my number is greater than 50, so you should try something higher than that. 75. and then it's going to say my number is less, so let's try 60. And you keep trying to guess until you actually do 69. And once you guess, it's going to tell you, well done, it took you 7 attempts to guess this number. And I want you to do the same game with Python. So I posted here some of the commands you may need. There are many ways to do this. Don't feel the pressure to use these commands exactly. I also gave you some hints. If you want, you can stay here with me. We can share our screen and do it together. If not, you can go. But first, let's give the word to Felipe to close the event. Felipe is our president of the Boston Club, by the way. And maybe another time you're going to meet our presidents from the San Francisco campus. And yeah, your words, Felipe.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time and for giving this masterclass to all our members, to all our students. What we do here at Hult Data Global is something like this. We want to provide you with academic events. For this time, we have Nicola is part of the club and a student at Hult. But in the future, we will have events with BCG, with IBM, with Google. We will do a hackathon next year, probably. So just stay in touch with what we are doing. We are really happy to give this to you. Thank you for being here, for having the time. I really hope that this helps you to kick off your program better prepared than before, and that you can get and improve each day on these skills. So that's it. Anyone that wants to stay with Nico can stay here. If not, you can go. It was a pleasure today to be with you.